What's up, guys? I'm out at the shop today, so I figured let's get a quick little video about these new Tenshock motors. Everybody seems to be going crazy about them, so we can look at them, talk about them a little bit. I've been testing them for quite a while, and we can take a closer look at them. So these are the standard Evo22 series motors. I think both of these are the 2240, 2750 kV. So these are actually 38 millimeter motors, not 36, not 40. They're 38, which is a little bit weird size, but we'll get back to that. And then OSE helped develop this motor for P Limited. This is a 37 millimeter by 60, so it fits within the rules for Namba P Limited. When you order them from OSE, it'll come with this really nice beefy aluminum motor mount, which almost makes it a quick change. But anyway, so these motors are crammed full of winding, so there was literally no room to put screws at the front without risking the screws going into the winding. You can see the stator comes all the way up to the front end bell there. So if you notice, that's also silver winding. It's a silver copper alloy. Very, very efficient. These motors make a ton of power, and they do not waste a lot of energy on heat. I've actually yet to get one of these motors hot, and hot for me is anything over 160. I think the hottest I've ever gotten a motor is 130, and I'll talk about different setups I've tried so far with different motors, different KVs, etc. But yeah, so this is the OSE P Limited motor. This one's the 2050 kV, and like I said, they all come with this adapter ring, which makes it really handy. If you are going to run a rear support ring, which I don't think you need, but if your mount requires it, I think OSE is going to offer a rear ring. For the 38 millimeter, my buddy Darren Williams printed up this. He designed and printed this really quick. It's pretty neat. It's PETG. It has brass threaded inserts in M3. So this will slip right over the motor like a normal TFL ring, and it'll let you mount this motor in a typical or a standard motor mount that most of us use. So on the standard Evo22 series, they have the mount holes at the front like normal. So this is just a standard motor. The only difference is it's 38 millimeter. So you have to use their jacket. You can't use an aftermarket jacket, which initially I was concerned about it because the length of the jacket is pretty small, as you can see here. But Tenshock assured me that you will not need a bigger jacket, and they're correct. So give me 1 second, I'll pause really quick. So this is what the motor looks like without the jacket. Again, this one's full of winding all the way, cap to cap. So on the jacket, there is a rib on the inside, which pretty much restricts flow, but you'll see there is a notch right there at the bottom. That's the only way for water to flow from one chamber to the other. So it's forced recirculation, and the theory is water is not allowed to stagnate inside the jacket. It's forced to recirculate. So these motors, they are efficient. They don't waste any energy on heat. They don't get hot. Is it because the windings are high end, because they're silver windings? Probably. Is it because of the jacket? Probably. So it all adds up, and it may only be a little bit here, a little bit there, but altogether, it's a big difference. And these motors, I'm telling you, they do not get hot. So previously, or currently, a lot of times the weak point in our setup is the motor. You can put a big prop on it, but it's going to get hot. Now, they just don't get hot. The weak point is now the ESC. If you're running a Fly Color 150 or a Sea King 180, I think you're not going to go any faster because you're already at the limit of the ESC. By upgrading to these motors, you're still being held back by the ESC if you're running something like a Sea King 180. Even a Swordfish 220 or a ZTW 200, you are going to be under-equipped, I should say. So people are saying you have to run a Castle ESC, which I do recommend. I mean, every single one of my boats, they do have a Castle ESC. but you don't really need to have an X8S. So for example, this is a Mamba Monster X 6S. This one's been out for a long time. This is a very good option. They're very powerful. It's only rated up to 6S, which is fine. We don't, in P-class racing, which is the most popular class right now, I think we run 4S. And can this one handle 300 amps? Yeah, it can. Will it get hot? Sorta. Now keep in mind, where I race, the water temperature is normally 80 to 90, sometimes even 93 degrees. So that's pretty hot. So when you're using 90-degree water to cool something, it doesn't really cool it because the water is already warm. So in my water, which is 90 degrees sometimes, always over 80. This time of the year, in April, the water is already 83, 84 degrees. Anyway, with 84-degree water, this ESC is still, after a race, 155 degrees, 160. So if you consider that's a delta of, what is that, 75 degrees, and then you factor in, let's say your water temperature at your place is 50 degrees. So 50 degrees plus 75 degrees, you're only going to be running 125 degrees. That's you know what? That's the sweet spot. So anyway, this ESC, you can buy them used for probably 100, 120 bucks, even cheaper if you know somebody. Now you do have to water cool them yourself. These, I have water cooled myself. These are homemade cooling blocks. It's not hard to do. You basically have aluminum flat bar. I drill 3 holes, 1, 2, and a third one from the side to create a U channel, and then I plug the back. That's it. So I have a U bend here. These nipples are 4mm ID with an M6 thread. So the passage in here is 5.5mm. That's plenty of flow. And I will say all of my converted ESCs, they run cooler than the Hydra version. On my X8Ss, all of mine are home water cooled. I don't have any of the new Hydras. Well, no, that's not correct. I have one of the new Hydras, but my converted ones run just as cool as the Hydra. Anyway, so this is a Mamba Monster 2. Okay, so this is a really old ESC. This is actually a Mamba Monster 2 Retro. This has the 1.24 firmware, which has no electrical nannies at all. The way these castles work, not just all castles, not just this one. If you can keep it cool, it will keep pumping the amps. There's no actual amp limiter in these castle ESCs. So the limitation is temperature. They have temperature cutoff. So if you can keep the ESC cool, it's going to keep chooching. Now here's the thing. Water cooling is about 20 times more efficient than air cooling. So it's actually very easy to keep these things cool, as long as you're not running some stupid setup, right? But anyway, so this is a Mamba Monster 2, which I would say is pretty equivalent to the Mamba Monster X, but you don't have data logging. And on this particular ESC, the Retro, it's a fixed BEC of 5.5 volts, which is fine for a boat. We're not running, we don't need high torque servos. I mean, we do, but you can find servos that are high torque even at 5.5 volts. Anyway, there's no data logging in this one. Is data logging nice? Absolutely. That's why I run castles, because you can data log. But for sport boating, you know what? This is a great option. Of course, this is all dependent on if you can water cool them yourself. Anyway, so you don't need a $275 ESC. You can pick up one of these for $100, spend a few bucks to make one of those, or you can buy a store-bought one. Just make some measurements, take some measurements, and look for coolers off of eBay, and you'll find one that fits. Mine, I make them to be the full width of the factory heatsink, so they're as efficient as possible. But I've seen people that use a store-bought cooler with small passages, and they cool just fine. Because like I said, water cooling is 20 times more efficient than air cooling. Okay, anyway, so back to these motors. These 2750 kVs, I tried them in my twin Cheetah, and it's fast. It pulls a lot of amps though. So I'm still working on the correct prop combo. As you guys know, twins is very difficult, I should say, to tune, because those are some expensive props that you got to buy in pairs. And actually, not all the good props, not all the props you want are available in pairs. So that's a work in progress, but I have tried them as singles in trash can. So trash can right here. She just got a new hatch. I made this. This cowl is from a Zonda. Cut it all out, and then all of this made from scratch. Anyway, so this is another P limited motor. This is the 2650 kV. And this boat right now in this configuration, it runs 73.4 miles an hour. And I backed it up a few times during testing, even after that. And it's running consistent 73 miles an hour. So as you'll see, this is not a X8S ESC. This is a Cobra 8. This is the new Cobra for the Castle. It's almost as powerful as the X8S, but it's limited to 6S. And it has some nice data logging extras compared to the old Castle Link. It has an accelerometer inside it, so you can monitor G-force and lots of things. It can tell you timing, like real-time timing, which in our application, that's not that big of a deal. Some of my boats, I do run sensored Castle motors with a sensor wire, so it would be nice to do differential timing, and you can really monitor that and fine-tune that if you have the new Cobra data logging. But anyway, so again, you don't need an X8S. There's lots of options out there. You know what? Even the Hobby Wing Max 5 G2, I bet you that'll run one just fine. Because those are rated at 250 amp, but Hobby Wing is really good about having burst amp much, much higher than that. And the thing is, whenever I run this boat, so I think this motor here, it's pulling peak 270 amps. That's the peak. So that's, you know, hammering it coming out of the corner. That's when you're going to see your peak amp draw. But let's say a sustained pull going down the straightaway. Oh, it's like a breezy 155, 160 amps. Which, okay, that's still a lot. You're not going to run this on a Sea King 120, but if you're serious about racing, and especially in P Limited, you're not going to be running a Sea King 120, right? Anyway, so this motor is a little bit smaller than this one. So this motor was actually in this boat also. So this is the full-size Evo2240, and this is the Evo2240 Limited. So it's almost literally the stator from here crammed into a smaller motor. Now it is 10% less winding in here. That'll explain the kV differences. So it's not literally the same stator in the smaller can. It is 10% less winding, but man, this is a stout motor. So this motor here, even though it's only a 38 by 70 millimeter, it pushed this boat to 77.9 miles an hour. Now, granted, this is not a saw boat. This is not a speedrun boat. This is an oval boat. And it did not have temps. I mean, the ESC didn't get hot. Motor didn't get hot. It just ran like a champ. So I could race it 6 laps plus penalty laps if I wanted to. But this would make it a full P boat, which this hull is kind of outclassed by the Cheetahs in full P. Now in P Limited, well, currently this hull would run okay, I think. But I bet you, and we'll get to that, I bet you people will start running Cheetahs in P Limited because this motor is so powerful that you can push a single Cheetah to speeds you would never expect in P Limited, and actually even in single. So, or in PCAT. In our club, we run a separate single and a twin class for PCAT because there's no way that singles can keep up with twins. And if your twin is as slow as a single, that's your own fault. But in our club, our twins are fast. All of our twins are doing well over 70. Mine races at 75. But anyway, so on this single, this one does have an X8S. That is the stump fab cooling block. And this is a larger, the Evo2250. So the 2240 that I've been showing you, the P Limited is a 60 millimeter motor. The normal one is a 70 millimeter, and this is a 50 millimeter. I think OSE is offering the 2260, which is even longer. It's a 90 millimeter. But on this, for this motor, this is a 38 by 80, and this one is 2150 kV. So we tried this motor and swinging a big prop. It's on a 1915 right now. 1915, 2150 kV. It's doing 69 miles an hour, but it's pulling some amps. So the ESC will give you a warning at 350 amps. So it's pulling more than that, which I don't think you can race that. It actually did in thermal, but when I checked the logs after like 4 or 5 laps, it was about to thermal. It got to 175 on the ESC. And I think thermal cutoff on a Castle X8S is 185. So the motor didn't get hot. This is the hottest motor I've ever gotten from Tenshock. This one got up to 130 on the temp gun. Okay, so about the amps. Yes, I know some of you guys are going to be like, okay, well, just put a Hydra XLX2 in it. Can you do that? Of course. There's people that already run the XLX2 in P class. Will it handle the amps? Absolutely. But at what cost? Because in PCAT, we're limited to 10,000 milliamp total. There's a 5,000 here, a 5,000 there. It runs in parallel, so it's 10,000 total. My boats, they don't use a lot of amps. And I believe that that efficiency, that's what helps me win races. Because at the end of a race, I have more volts, which means you have more kV, more RPM, and more speed. Now, if you're pulling 350 amps for a whole race, you are going to eat up these batteries. And yeah, okay, let's say you're sandbagging the whole race and you just save a little bit of gas in the tank for when you need it. That works too. But I don't like to have to think about that in a race. I just want to go hammer down. And, well, no, that's not true, because I don't sandbag, but I only drive as fast as I need to. But anyway, so 350 amps, you are going to run these batteries low. You risk hurting the batteries, especially if you have a penalty lap, maybe 2 penalty laps. Any more than 2, I'll just take a DNF, to be honest with you, because I'm not going to risk my equipment for 5th place. But ideally, I'm going to find the right prop so that the peak amps on this boat is less than 300. Now, like I said, this boat's doing 69 miles an hour. For a single, I think that's pretty fast. I think a lot of the twins don't even go that fast. But anyway, the motor is stout. This is a 38 by 80. So if you think about it, this is still smaller than a 4082. Mass-wise, it's probably smaller than a 4074. So they are spicy motors. Let's look at my P mono. So this one is won a ton of races also, but it's still on a Castle motor. This is a Castle 1515, which is a 4074 size, 2200 kV, and I am running an X8S. That's a converted X8S. Now this boat, I think it only does like high 50s mile per hour, but the peak amp draw is 220 amps peak, and it's much less than that, on a straightaway. And that thing is swinging a X447 3-blade. Super stable on the straights and in the corners. Low amp draw. Now the secret to that, or the benefit to that, is at the end of the race, I have a lot more volts to play with. Some of these guys, they're running, TP 4070s, which is a 40 by 107 millimeter. Some people are running bigger motors than that, and they run the Hydra XLX2, giant ESC. They're pulling a lot of amps, but you know what? At the end of the race, they're out of battery. My boat finishes at above 50%. And I don't know what those guys finish at, but it's got to be less than 50% because they're pulling 300 plus amps. And maybe I'll throw in some race footage. But if you watch my channel, well, nobody watches my channel. I upload the videos just because on Facebook, after a few weeks, you lose high def or HD quality. So I put them on YouTube just so that I always have them. But anyway, if you watch our videos on Hot NBC, I close in towards the end of a race. I can crash and wipe out maybe once or twice, and I can run them down towards the end of the race. And that's because their boats are slowing down, and mine is maintaining speed still. And that's because low amps, low battery consumption, more kV, more RPM. Anyway, so back to these boats, these motors, I should say. I know OSE is offering the 2260, which is 20 millimeters longer than this one, and that'll be a spicy little unit. I'm working with Tenshock. Well, not working with them. I'm trying to get them to offer some new KVs, and I think we're going to get there because 2750 kV with this motor, which is smaller, that was asking a lot out of this motor. 21 kV, 2150 kV out of this bigger motor, it works great, but I think it needs a little bit more kV. That way I don't have to swing such a big prop. So anyway, yeah, if you got any questions about these motors, I'll try to answer them. I mean, I don't know that much about them. Oh, well, I will say these nipples, I saw one other guy where they pulled out on him on one of my motors. On this one, both nipples did pull out. So check on those regularly or whatever, or maybe just epoxy them. I'm going to thread this M4 and then put some larger nipples in it. Also check the O-rings. Whenever you get these motors, they already come with the jacket on. I've had one where the O-ring was not seated and it filled up my boat on the first run. So I would pull them off, double check, put them back on. Anyway, if you got any questions about setup, I might answer it, but feel free to ask. And yeah, if you got any questions about the boats, I'll try to answer them also. But let me know. Let me know what kind of content you want to see. I'm going to try and start doing more videos. Hopefully not videos this long, but we can talk about boat setup, boat building, all of these boats. Actually, no, this one is an RTR. This is an RTR Pursuit from OSE or TFL. But all of these other ones, all my other boats, including these two here, I built myself, and they run pretty good. So maybe I'll try to get one of those on video. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys.